Carol stole Emma's $45,000 college fund for Sophie's house, so Emma slept in her car at 18. Now a millionaire, she faced them again and turned the tables. For Emma, one of those occasions was seeing her sister Sophie and their mother Carol walk into the welcome reception for her new $960,000 home, a home that reflected every single sacrifice. Late night, every ounce of hustle she put into starting her IT company. Nonetheless, the knot in Emma's stomach intensified, and her skin crawled, because she recognized the expression in their eyes. The exact expression she saw when she was 18, the night her entire world collapsed. Growing up in Boston, Emma's family appeared to be rather normal. Tom worked in finance while Carol ran a boutique, and they had 2 daughters as well as a golden retriever named Buddy. However, as the saying goes, appearances can be misleading. When Emma was 12, the cracks began to show. Tom walked out, and while the divorce wasn't spectacular, what happened next laid the foundation for years of pure family dysfunction. Sophie, 3 years older than Emma, later married Mark, an investment banker from an affluent family. Their wedding was spectacular, and Carol spent over $50,000 she didn't have, arguing that a daughter only gets married once. Emma was 19 at the time, working 2 jobs, attending community college, and barely scraping by to purchase her bridesmaid dress. Then came the babies, Noah, Lily, and Ethan. With each child, Sophie's attitude of entitlement developed, and Carol was always available to help them out, often at Emma's expense. "Your sister has 3 children to feed," Carol would explain. "What do you need extra money for, anyway? Books? Can't you just use the library?" Meanwhile, Emma was working herself to exhaustion. Scholarships helped, but without family support, Emma worked as a barista in the morning, a tutor in the afternoon, and a data entry clerk on weekends. Sleep was a luxury she could not afford. Tom faded into obscurity after moving to Chicago and starting a new family. Carol honestly made it difficult for him to stay in touch with Emma by forgetting to notify her when he called, or mistakenly deleting his messages. But Emma persevered. While Sophie shared gorgeous family holiday images, Emma stayed up all night coding and studying. She graduated as the top of her class. Carol attended Emma's high school graduation, but left early since Sophie called about Noah having a minor temperature. Emma never complained. She simply accepted this as her reality and got motivated to create her own success on her own terms. Emma did not need their approval. What she didn't expect was how drastically things would shift on her 18th birthday. That night defined all that followed, culminating in the showdown 14 years later. Emma's 18th birthday was on a Tuesday. She recalled because she had managed to get the evening off, a rare occurrence. Emma wasn't expecting a major celebration. Sophie and Mark were expecting their 3rd child, and they had the entire family's attention. Still, turning 18 seemed momentous. Emma was legally an adult, had completed high school, and received partial scholarships to 3 universities. When she returned home after tutoring, she found Carol and Sophie at the kitchen table, engrossed in spreadsheets. "They scarcely glanced up. Leftover lasagna in the fridge if you're hungry," Carol said, her gaze fixed on the papers. Emma heated a plate and joined them, intrigued. "What are you working on?" Carol asked, looking up. "Just figuring out some financial matters. Sophie and Mark need a bigger house, now that Ethan is on the way." Emma nodded, accustomed to such chats. But then a chill ran through her. "Why do you have my college paperwork?" Sophie sighed dramatically. "We might as well tell her, Mum." Carol smoothed the papers and glanced at Emma with that familiar gaze that usually came before Emma had to make a family sacrifice. "Emma, we need to discuss your college plans." Carol told Emma that with Sophie expecting again, they really needed a 4-bedroom house. Mark's bonus wasn't as large as they expected that year, and they were a bit stretched. Emma sat calmly, knowing exactly where this was headed. "The thing is," Sophie said, "we've calculated everything." And even with Mark's salary and Carol helping with the down payment, they were still short. Short for what? Emma inquired, even though she already knew. "We need to use your college fund," Carol said. "Frankly, it's not like you don't have scholarships already. And community college is perfectly respectable. You can transfer to a university later when things aren't so tight for the family." Emma's college fund, the money Tom had started prior to the divorce. Carol's promised money for Emma's schooling remained undisturbed. Emma was banking on this fund to bridge the gaps left by scholarships. "But that's my money," Emma replied gently. "Dad set it aside for my education." Sophie rolled her eyes. "Don't be selfish, Emma. We're talking about a home for your niece and nephews. Where are they supposed to sleep? Should Ethan just live in a closet because you want to attend some fancy university?" "That's not what I'm saying," Emma insisted. "But I've worked so hard for this. I've maintained a 4.0 GPA while working multiple jobs. Those scholarships won't cover everything. You can take out loans just like everyone else," Sophie snapped. "Mark and I have a mortgage. That's life." Or she might have said, "You could live at home and attend community college. That would be much more economical." Something within Emma shifted. A lifetime of acquiescence and acceptance gave way to outright outrage. "No!" A simple word hung in the air. Carol blinked, not expecting any resistance from Emma. "Excuse me?" "No," Emma said again, more forcefully this time. "That money is for my education. Dad set it aside for me. It's not Sophie's house fund." Carol's expression tightened. "This isn't a negotiation, Emma. This is what's happening. Your sister has a family to provide for. And I have a future to build," Emma responded, her voice cracking. "I've earned those scholarships. I've worked while maintaining perfect grades. I deserve to use my college fund for college." Sophie chuckled, in a chilly, disdainful tone. "Oh, please. Like you know anything about real responsibility. Try having 3 children before you lecture us on what you deserve." Tears threatened Emma, but she kept them back. "This isn't fair, and you know it." Carol jumped up, scraping her chair. "My priority is my education," Emma replied. "That's not wrong." "Well then," Carol said, crossing her arms. "If that's your attitude, you have a choice to make. Accept that the money is going to help your sister, or pack your bags and figure out life on your own. You're 18 now, after all." An ultimatum hovered in the air. Sophie smiled, confident that Emma would back down as she had always done. But something had cracked within Emma. Years of being second best, putting Sophie's needs ahead of her own. She stood up gently. "I'll pack my bags." The shock on their faces would have been satisfying if Emma hadn't been so afraid. Carol certainly did not expect her to choose independence. "Don't be so dramatic," Sophie scoffed. "Where would you even go?" Emma didn't respond. She stepped into her bedroom and took out her largest luggage. She packed clothing, toiletries, her laptop, and vital documents mechanically. Family portraits remained on the walls. They did not feel like hers anymore. Carol appeared in Emma's doorway as she zipped the suitcase shut. "You're being ridiculous. Sleep on it, and we'll discuss this rationally in the morning." "There's nothing to discuss," Emma said, startled by her own serenity. "You've made your position clear. I'm making mine clear too." She pushed her suitcase past Carol, retrieved her backpack from the hook near the front door, and stepped outside into the night. Nobody called after Emma. Nobody tried to stop her. That night, Emma slept in her car in the Walmart parking lot with her work uniform as a cushion. For 2 weeks, she maintained that routine, working 3 jobs, sleeping in her car, and showering at the gym where she had a bargain membership. She told no one. On the 15th day, her computer science teacher, Dr. Helen Reed, observed Emma snoozing in the library. Dr. Reed softly awoke Emma and asked whether everything was fine. Something in her gentle eyes broke Emma's carefully held composure, so she told her everything. That evening, Dr. Reed drove Emma to her house and showed her the guest room. "It's yours until you figure things out," she explained simply. "No one should face this alone." Dr. Reed became more than just a teacher to Emma. She became her mentor, advocate, and the first person who believed in her unconditionally. She assisted Emma in obtaining further scholarships, guiding her through financial aid applications, and providing a valuable reference for an internship that would eventually change her life. Everything that happened after the night Emma was kicked out was shaped by that experience. It showed her that she was completely on her own, but that chosen family could be more supportive than biological relatives. Most significantly, It demonstrated Emma's personal strength, a strength she was unaware she possessed until she was forced to discover it. With Dr. Reed's help, Emma was able to secure enough financial aid, scholarships, and part-time employment to attend a local state institution rather than her ideal school. It wasn't Boston University, but it had a strong computer science curriculum, which Emma appreciated. College life was very different for her than for her peers. While they went to parties and joined clubs, Emma worked various jobs to remain afloat, including waitressing, staffing the university IT help desk, and completing freelance web development projects late at night. Sleep became a luxury, and social life was non-existent. Despite her hectic schedule, Emma maintained a flawless GPA. The computer science curriculum came easily, and she found herself assisting classmates who were struggling, one of whom was Mia Chen. Mia, a brilliant but distracted individual, became Emma's best friend and eventual business partner. They were diametrically opposed in some respects. Emma was methodical. Mia was impetuous. Emma excelled at back-end programming. Mia had a knack for user experience and design. Together, they were ideal. During their junior year, they began talking about developing a money management app for young adults. The majority of existing tools were designed for those who were already financially secure, rather than for those like them who were living paycheck to paycheck. They identified a gap and were motivated to fill it. Using campus resources, they created a prototype. They named it Sen, an app that let users visualize their spending, automate their savings, and create responsible credit. Their teachers were impressed, but more significantly, their classmates found it quite beneficial. After graduation, Emma and Mia had to decide whether to take stable corporate jobs or chase their business dreams. The safe option was appealing, especially considering Emma's financial instability. However, Emma remembered Dr. Reed's words. Sometimes, the riskiest path leads to the greatest rewards. They took a chance by moving into a tiny roach-infested flat to save money. They gave themselves totally to Sen app. Emma coded while eating ramen. Mia worked on user interfaces till daybreak. They went to every networking event, pitch competition, and startup program they could find. 6 months of rejections ensued. Investors believed they were too young, inexperienced, or focused on the wrong demographics. College students don't care about financial planning, one venture entrepreneur remarked dismissively. But they persisted. They had a breakthrough when they received a small company grant which enabled them to hire their first employee, a marketing professional who assisted them in refining their messaging. They shifted slightly, focusing on recent graduates with student loans rather than current students. The app gained traction gradually, then exponentially. They were highlighted on a technology blog. A financial influencer with millions of followers endorsed Sen, and their user base rose from thousands to hundreds of thousands. Throughout this process, Emma had occasional thoughts about reaching out to her relatives. She'd had very little interaction since that night. Carol called 3 months after Emma left, not to apologize, but to notify her that they had spent her college fund for Sophie's down payment. Tom sent periodic texts to check in, but their relationship remained distant. Instead, Emma focused on growing her business and her personal life. Years passed in a flurry of code, meetings, and eventual achievement. Emma and Mia relocated from their shabby flat to a proper office. They employed additional developers, customer service agents, and marketing specialists. Sen developed into a comprehensive financial platform. 5 years after their start, they received an acquisition offer from one of the country's top financial technology organizations. The amount was staggering, enough to make Emma and Mia wealthy multiple times over. They finally agreed after weeks of negotiations. Emma was 30 years old and suddenly richer than she had ever believed possible. The worried 18-year-old sleeping in her car appeared to be a completely different person. Financial security provided Emma the freedom to make intelligent decisions rather than frantic ones. She invested most of her windfall, gave to scholarships for first-generation college students, and eventually allowed herself to consider building a home, a genuine home, not just a place to sleep between work shifts. After months of searching, Emma discovered it, a lovely craftsman-style home in an upmarket neighborhood. At $960,000, it was a hefty investment, but it was well within her budget. The four-bedroom home had character and charm, with hardwood floors, huge windows, a wraparound porch, and a large backyard. It needed modifications, but Emma spotted its potential right away. As she signed the closing forms, Emma considered the irony. 14 years ago, her college fund was depleted to help Sophie buy a larger home. Now, she was able to buy a property for about $1 million via her own work. During the restoration, Emma got an unexpected note from her father. He'd seen the news about Sen's acquisition online and wanted to congratulate her. Emma's chat with Tom was unpleasant, yet it opened up possibilities. He stated that he had lost track of her after she left and was too embarrassed to try harder to find her. He had gotten divorced again and moved back to Boston. Would Emma consider meeting for coffee? That coffee meeting was tense yet healing. Tom apologized for being absent during Emma's challenging years. He confessed he was aware of the college fund predicament, but felt unable to intervene. Emma didn't forgive him right away, but she appreciated his honesty. They agreed to focus on progressively restoring their connection. During their talk, Tom revealed that Sophie and Mark were experiencing financial difficulties again. Apparently, they had to downsize once Mark's company was restructured. Carol continued to help them in any way she could. "They don't know about your success," Tom remarked. "I haven't told them," Emma nodded, not sure how she felt about it. Part of her wanted them to know she was successful, despite their lack of support. Another part of Emma preferred that her accomplishments remain quiet. As her house renovations neared completion, she planned a housewarming celebration. After considerable thought, she included her relatives on the guest list. Mia worried Emma was setting herself up for disappointment, but Emma felt it was time to end that chapter of her life one way or another. Emma extended formal invitations to Tom, Carol, Sophie, and Mark. Tom answered promptly with acceptance. Carol called, astonished but agreeable. Sophie texted, "Looking forward to seeing how you're doing. We'll be there." The stage was set for a reunion Emma never expected, one that would be more dramatic than she could have imagined. The morning of Emma's housewarming party was sunny and lovely. Despite staying up late to finish up the house, she awoke early. Every room was perfect. The living room with its comfortable sectional and built-in bookshelves, the gourmet kitchen with marble countertops and professional-grade appliances, the dining room that could comfortably seat 12 people, and 4 beautifully appointed bedrooms upstairs, including a master suite with a balcony overlooking the backyard. Mia arrived about 10, laden with champagne and decorations. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" she inquired, arranging flowers. "It's not too late to uninvite them." "I need closure," Emma said, her stomach churning at the prospect of seeing her mother and sister again. "Besides, they're just 3 people out of 30 guests. If things get uncomfortable, we'll have plenty of buffers." The caterers arrived at midday and set up stations on the first level. By 3 o'clock, everything was ready. Food, drinks, music, and Emma's nerves were frayed. Her colleagues in technology arrived first, followed by neighbors. Dr. Reed arrived with her husband, embracing Emma warmly and whispering how proud she was. Friends from college, industry contacts, and Emma's financial advisor completed the early arrivals. At 4:30, the doorbell rang again. Emma opened it to see her father standing awkwardly on the porch, holding a gift bag. "Dad," she replied, the words still seeming odd. "Emma," he said, looking at the house behind her. "This is impressive." Emma let him in, gave him a quick tour, and introduced him to a few guests. He appeared genuinely thrilled to see how well she was doing, if a little out of place among the successful professionals that occupied her home. "Your mother and sister should be here soon," he explained. They were planning to come together. Emma nodded and refilled her water glass to conceal her uneasiness. "And how are they?" Tom paused. "Managing Mark's job situation has been tough on them. They sold their house last year and moved to a townhouse. Carol, your mum, helps with the kids a lot." Before Emma could react, Mia appeared at her elbow. "More guests arriving," she said, "including your mother and sister." Emma took a deep breath and made her way to the front door. There they stood. Carol, barely aged despite the 14 years, and Sophie, still lovely, but with stress lines around her eyes. Behind them stood Mark, who appeared much older and more worn than Emma remembered, and their 3 children: Noah, now a teenager, Lily, a preteen, and Ethan, about 10 years old. "Emma," Carol replied, her tone cautious. "Thank you for inviting us." "Welcome," Emma said, standing back to let them enter. "Please come in." The kids hung back sheepishly, evidently instructed to be on their best behavior. Emma smiled at them. She scarcely knew these nieces and nephews. "There's a game room upstairs if you get bored," Emma assured them. "Second door on the right." That broke the ice a little. Noah inquired if she had a gaming system, and when Emma said yes, the kids went upstairs. After a quick thank you, Mark said, "Beautiful home." He gazed about with professional curiosity. "The architectural details are impressive." "Thank you," Emma responded. "The renovation took 6 months, but it was worth it." 6 months? Sophie raised her eyes. "You must have had quite a team working on it." "I did," Emma said without elaborating. "Would you like a tour?" Leading them around the house, Emma watched Sophie's demeanor become more calculated. Sophie ran her hand along the granite counters, glanced into closets, and commented on the great play area in the backyard. Carol followed more quietly, occasionally remarking on a decor or inquiring about a feature. "This must have been quite an investment," she finally murmured, as they entered the main bedroom. "It was," Emma admitted, "but I've been fortunate in my career." "What exactly are you doing now?" Sophie inquired, sitting uninvited on the edge of Emma's bed. "Dad mentioned something about an app." Emma told them a shortened version of her success story, seeing their faces change from polite inquiry to astonished realization. "You sold your company for millions?" Sophie asked, her voice higher than usual. "We did," Emma said. "The timing was right." The tour continued downstairs where additional visitors had arrived. Emma introduced her family to Mia, Dr. Reed, and colleagues and acquaintances who knew some of her tale. Throughout the introductions, Emma spotted Carol and Sophie gathered in corners, whispering passionately. Mark appeared disengaged from their chats, instead truly interacting with Emma's tech industry acquaintances. 1 hour into the celebration, Emma clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate this new chapter with me," she told them. "This house represents not just a place to live, but a milestone I once thought impossible." Emma expressed her gratitude to everyone who had supported her along the way. As she finished her brief statement, Sophie approached. "As Emma's sister, I'd like to say something too." Her voice had that confident tone Emma knew from childhood, the voice that always preceded Sophie getting exactly what she wanted. "Family is everything," Sophie added, resting her palm on Emma's arm. "And seeing Emma's beautiful home today has made me realize how perfect this would be for our family." The visitors exchanged perplexed murmurs. "What Sophie means," Carol said softly, "is that we're so proud of Emma for creating a space where family can gather." "No," Sophie replied, tightening her grasp on Emma's arm. "What I mean is that this house would be perfect for my family. With Mark's job situation and the kids needing good schools, we've been looking for exactly this kind of home in exactly this neighborhood." The room went silent. Even the caterer had stopped moving. "Sophie," Mark began, his face flushing, "this isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the right time," she said. "Emma's always wanted to help family. She's single, no kids, and clearly doing well financially. This 4-bedroom house is wasted on one person when we have 3 growing children who need space and stability." Carol nodded in accord. Emma stood paralyzed, hardly believing what she was hearing. After 14 years of no contact, after seizing her college fund, they were now expecting that Emma give them her home. "Emma?" Carol said, her voice taking on that authoritative tone Emma recognized all too well. "You need to pack your bags and find somewhere smaller. A condo downtown would suit your lifestyle much better, and it would mean the world to your sister's family." Sophie was already pacing around the living room, pointing out the adjustments they planned to make. Noah could take the bedroom with the bay window. Lily would love the purple room, and Ethan would have so much space for his toys in the smallest bedroom. Carol joined in. "After all Sophie's been through, she deserves this. It's the least you could do as her sister." The room had become utterly silent. Emma's visitors glanced at her with terrified fascination. Mia had rushed to Emma's side, offering support, but remaining mute. Emma took a deep breath, feeling strangely calm despite the absurd scene that was happening. "I have something to show you," she murmured quietly while collecting her phone. Emma used the smart home system to connect her phone to the enormous TV in the main room. With a few touches, she opened a document and projected it on the screen. "What's this?" Sophie inquired anxiously. "This," Emma told her, "is a restraining order I filed 14 years ago after you kicked me out on my 18th birthday." The room fell silent as the legal paper appeared on the screen. Even the caterer stood motionless, trays in hand. "What are you talking about?" Carol's voice broke the silence, a mix of confusion and outrage. "We never kicked you out! You chose to leave!" Emma kept her voice steady, years of practice controlling her emotions paying off. "You gave me an ultimatum on my 18th birthday. Either my college fund would go to Sophie's down payment, or I could pack my bags. I packed my bags. You didn't stop me." "That was a disagreement, not an eviction," Sophie snorted, keeping her gaze fixed on the document. "You are being dramatic. I slept in my car for 2 weeks," Emma explained simply. In February, in Boston, a murmur spread among the assembled visitors. Tom walked forward, his face pale. "I didn't know it was that bad," he remarked gently. "You never told me." "Would it have mattered?" Emma inquired. He had no response to that. Emma swiped to the next document in her phone. "This is more interesting, though. This is why I filed the restraining order." The screen now displayed credit reports and loan applications in Emma's name, all from shortly after she left home. "What is this?" Mark inquired, leaning closer to the screen. His financial background helped him to comprehend what he was witnessing before the others. "After I left, someone opened 3 credit cards and took out a personal loan in my name," Emma told them. "They had my social security number, my birth certificate, and enough personal information to pass security questions. The total debt was just over $45,000. Carol's face had turned white. Sophie became really interested in her wine glass. "Fortunately," Emma said, "the detective who helped me was thorough. The credit cards were used at stores Sophie frequented. The loan money was deposited into an account that then transferred the exact amount to your joint checking account, Mark." Mark carefully turned to face his wife. "You told me that money was from your mother, a gift to help with the down payment." "It was," Sophie affirmed. "Mum helped arrange it." "By committing identity theft against your own daughter," Dr. Reed interjected, her intellectual manner giving way to protective wrath. "That's a felony, in case you weren't aware." "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding," Carol started. "This is the police report I filed," Emma said, bringing up another document. "I had enough evidence to press charges for identity theft and fraud. The detective was particularly interested in this loan application." Emma focused on a signature in which someone had attempted to counterfeit her signature, but misspelled her middle name. Sophie's hand shook so terribly that she had to put down her wine glass. "If you filed charges, why weren't we arrested?" she asked, her voice lacking conviction. "Because I didn't pursue it," Emma explained simply. "I was 18, terrified, and despite everything, you were still my family. So I made a deal with the detective. I would pay off the fraudulent debts myself if they documented everything but held off on prosecution." Emma swiped to another document. "This is proof of payment. Every cent of that $45,000 plus interest, paid by me over 3 years, while I was putting myself through college, working 3 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, eating ramen noodles to survive, while paying off debt I never incurred." Mark appeared physically unwell. "I had no idea," he murmured, his voice scarcely audible. "Sophie told me her parents were helping with the down payment as a gift." "Just one parent," Emma said gently. "And it wasn't a gift. It was theft." Carol finally found her voice. "You're twisting everything to make yourself the victim," she was saying. "We've always done everything we could for you. Sometimes families need to make hard choices for the greater good." "The greater good?" Tom asked, his voice rising unexpectedly. "Carol, she was 18, our daughter, and you stole from her." Carol turned against him. "Don't you dare judge me, Dad. You walked away. You left me to handle everything." I left you, not our daughters, he replied. And I certainly didn't authorize you to steal Emma's college fund or commit fraud in her name. I knew about the college fund, he said, turning to Emma. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder for you. But the credit cards, the loan, I had no idea. Emma nodded and accepted his incomplete apology for what it was. Sophie adjusted her approach after witnessing her support crumble. It was a difficult time, she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. We had a baby, needed a home. Mum was just trying to help us, and you weren't around to ask. Maybe, Emma said, but that doesn't justify fraud. She swiped to another document. This might interest you too, Mark. While investigating the identity theft, I discovered quite a bit about your family finances. These are records of 6 failed business ventures Sophie invested in, without your knowledge, using joint funds. The total losses exceeded $200,000 over 8 years. Mark's face had lost its color. What business ventures? Her college friend Megan's clothing boutique, her cousin's restaurant, a subscription box service for luxury pet products, among others. Emma put on paper. All failed within a year. All received substantial investments from your family accounts. Those were personal loans to friends, Sophie said faintly. They were going to pay back everything with interest. Is that why you hid the paperwork? The room had become uncomfortably tight. Guests were seeking ways out, unsure whether to stay for this plainly private family crisis. I think, Emma stated loudly, that we've gotten off track. You came here today to claim my home for yourselves, based on the assumption that I would once again sacrifice my needs for Sophie's wants. I'm making it clear that will never happen again. So you'll throw your own sister's family out on the street? Carol asked. Where's your compassion? Carol demanded. My compassion? Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where was your compassion when I was sleeping in my car in winter? Where was your compassion when you stole my identity and left me with crushing debt before I'd even started college? Carol opened her mouth before closing it again. I'm not throwing anyone out on the street, Emma explained more softly. But I'm not giving up my home. If you need financial help, I'm willing to discuss setting up education funds for Noah, Lily, and Ethan. They're innocent in all this, and I'd like to know my niece and nephews. We don't need your charity, Sophie snapped, despite Mark's face indicating otherwise. It's not charity, Emma responded. It's family helping family the right way. Carol grabbed her purse. I think we've heard enough. Children, we're leaving, Sophie said. The children are upstairs playing video games, Emma reminded her, and I think Mark might want to stay. Mark nodded slowly. I need to understand exactly what's been happening with our finances, he told Emma. The kids will be fine for a while longer. Fine, Carol snapped. Sophie, let's go. As they approached the door, Mia took a step forward. I think that's best. This is supposed to be a celebration of Emma's new home, not a venue for attempted property theft. Carol's face turned crimson red. How dare you? This is a family matter. Yes, Mia responded. And Emma's chosen family is here to support her. You might want to think about what real family support looks like before you return. After they left, the party gradually recovered momentum, though talks naturally revolved around the dramatic incident. Mark remained in the corner, speaking quietly with Emma's financial advisor and periodically checking his phone for texts from Sophie. Later, as the guests began to leave, Mark approached Emma and formally stated, I owe you an apology. I had no idea about the identity theft or the investments. I knew about the college fund, but Sophie told me you had agreed to it. Would it have mattered if you'd known the truth? Emma questioned him. He considered it. I'd like to think so, but truthfully, I was different then. Success and money were all that mattered. He looked around the room. Looking at what you've built on your own, I realize how misguided my priorities have been. What will you do now? Emma inquired. Have a very difficult conversation with my wife, he said solemnly, and probably contact a divorce attorney. The financial deceptions are too significant to ignore. Emma felt an unexpected pang of sadness for her sister. Despite her imperfections, Emma never wished her marriage to end. I meant what I said about education funds for the children, Emma told Mark, regardless of what happens between you and Sophie. He nodded graciously. They'd like to know their aunt, especially Noah. He's interested in programming. After Mark left to pick up the children, Emma and Mia started cleaning up. Well, Mia began, tossing glasses into the dishwasher. That was the most dramatic housewarming I've ever attended. Emma laughed and felt lighter than she had in years. Not exactly the closure she expected, but closure nonetheless. Do you think they'll try to contact you again? Mia inquired. Mum and Sophie. Eventually, when they need something. Emma shut the dishwasher and straightened up. But next time, I'll be prepared. No more doormat. As the final guest left and silence descended over her new home, Emma wandered through each room, admiring what she'd created. Not only was it a physical structure, but it also represented a life achieved through dedication, hard work, and the confidence to stand up for herself when it counted most. The days after the housewarming were unexpectedly tranquil. Emma expected Carol and Sophie to torment her, angry phone calls, manipulative texts, and possibly even unannounced visits. Instead, quiet. Mark phoned Emma and asked to meet at a coffee shop near his office. Sophie moved in with your mother, he told her over lattes, 3 days after the party. She took the kids for now, but we've agreed to equal custody while we sort things out. I'm sorry about your marriage, Emma stated truthfully. Mark shrugged, appearing fatigued and relieved. After what came to light at your party, I started digging deeper into our finances. It's worse than you know. We're not just struggling, we're nearly bankrupt. How's that possible? You had a good position at the investment firm. Had, he reiterated. I was let go 6 months ago, downsizing. I've been working as a financial consultant since then, but making about a third of my previous salary. Meanwhile, Sophie continued spending as though nothing had changed. Mark pushed a folder across the table. These are statements from accounts I didn't even know existed. Credit cards maxed out, loans I never signed for, second mortgages on the house before we sold it. While reviewing the records, Emma experienced a sense of déjà vu. She did to you what she and Mum did to me, Emma inquired. Except on a much larger scale, Mark agreed grimly. We're talking hundreds of thousands in debt. What will you do? Bankruptcy seems inevitable, he admitted. Emma nodded in understanding. My offer for education funds still stands. I can set up accounts that can only be used for educational expenses. That would mean everything, Mark remarked with sincere gratitude in his voice. And maybe, would you consider spending time with them occasionally? They need stable adults in their lives right now. That conversation signaled the beginning of a new chapter for Emma, Mark, and the children. They were intelligent, inquisitive children who withstood their parents' disagreement with surprising perseverance. Around 2 weeks after the housewarming, Tom invited Emma to supper. Over pasta at a quiet restaurant, he expressed his thoughts on years of family strife. I failed you, he admitted honestly. After the divorce, Carol made it difficult to maintain contact. But that's no excuse. I should have fought harder to stay involved in your life. Why didn't you? Emma asked, finally putting her thoughts into words after 14 years. He sighed heavily. Partly guilt. The divorce was my fault. I had an affair with my second wife before leaving. Carol knew, and she used that as leverage to control everything, including access to you girls. This discovery altered Emma's view of their family relationships, but it did not excuse his absence. I also failed to protect your college fund, Tom added. It was in a joint account with Carol. I trusted her to use it appropriately despite our problems. When I found out what happened, I was too ashamed to confront you about it. You could have helped me, Emma stated, thinking of when she was sleeping in her car. I didn't know, he said. Carol told me you'd moved in with a friend from school. By the time I learned otherwise, months had passed, and you'd stopped responding to my messages. Emma and Tom talked for hours that night, clearing up years of misconceptions, half-truths, and downright lies. Tom wasn't blameless, but Emma realized he'd been manipulated by Carol almost as much as she had. Your mother wasn't always like this, he clarified. After Sophie was born, something changed. She became obsessed with creating a perfect life for her, often at your expense. I tried to balance things, to advocate for you, but it only created more conflict. Why the favoritism? Emma inquired, the question that had plagued her childhood. Tom pondered this attentively. I think Sophie reminded Carol of herself, the self she wanted to be. Beautiful, socially adept, traditional. You are more like me, analytical, independent, questioning, and I think that scared her. The first communication from Sophie came 2 days after Emma's meal with Tom, a long email that alternated between apology and justification. She admitted to identity theft, but blamed it on financial desperation and her mother's influence. She apologized for the housewarming argument, but insisted that her family's needs took precedence over Emma's luxury. Classic Sophie, Mia observed as Emma showed her the email. Apologizing without actually accepting responsibility. At least she's acknowledging what happened, Emma said, feeling more generous now that she was safe from Sophie's influence. That's progress. Carol's approach was more straightforward. She began phoning every day, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry accusations to sad pleas. Families should forgive each other, she said in one message. We made mistakes, but so have you, by embarrassing us in front of your friends. Emma did not respond to either of them right away. Instead, she focused on setting clear boundaries with her therapist and Dr. Laura Price. Your mother and sister exhibit classic patterns of manipulative behavior, Dr. Price observed during one session. They're used to you eventually giving in. Your continued boundary setting is unfamiliar and threatening to them. I feel guilty sometimes, Emma told Dr. Price, especially about the kids being caught in the middle. That's natural, Dr. Price assured her. But remember, you're modeling healthy boundaries for those children, and you're supporting them directly through the education funds and quality time. That's genuine family support, not the conditional kind you received. Sophie and Mark's circumstances worsened over the course of several weeks. Their divorce proceedings uncovered other financial deceptions. Mark filed for bankruptcy as planned. Sophie and the children remained in Carol's modest home, which had become cramped and tense. 6 months after the housewarming, Mark got a better job at a smaller company and rented a 3-bedroom apartment. The custody arrangement granted him access to the children every other week. Throughout his weeks, Emma would pay Noah several visits, assisting him with programming assignments or simply offering another supporting adult presence. During one of these encounters, Mark mentioned that Sophie had started therapy. Her therapist suggested it might help with the divorce and financial issues. He told Emma, I'm skeptical about her commitment, but it's a start. Around the same time, Emma finally agreed to meet Carol for coffee. The conversation was difficult but respectful. Carol had aged significantly in the 6 months since the celebration. Living with Sophie and the children is challenging, she told Emma. There's no privacy, no peace, and her spending habits. She paused, shaking her head. You enabled those habits, Emma kindly pointed out. I wanted her to have everything I didn't, Carol explained, an uncommon example of self-awareness. I grew up poor, wore hand-me-downs, never had the nice things other girls had. I swore my daughter would have better. You had 2 daughters, Emma reminded her. Carol had the decency to appear embarrassed. I know. I convinced myself you were stronger, more independent, that you didn't need the same support. It wasn't a complete apology, but it was the closest Emma had ever gotten. This decades-long pattern of financial deception taught Emma that Carol's behavior was more than just favoritism. It revealed underlying concerns of control, entitlement, and possibly untreated mental health problems. Meanwhile, Sophie's therapy looked to be generating actual results. Emma's weekly meals with the kids moved from awkward to cautiously enjoyable. Sophie got a job as an administrative assistant at a local company, her first serious job since marriage, and moved into a modest apartment when living with Carol became too expensive for both of them. I've never learned to stand on my own, Sophie admitted at one of their discussions. Mum did everything for me. Then Mark took over. When everything fell apart, I had no idea how to function independently. Emma felt an unexpected sense of compassion as she watched Sophie struggle with fundamental adult chores like budgeting, meal planning, and home maintenance. Sophie, like Emma, had been a victim of Carol's disorder, albeit in a different way. Her golden child status had hampered her ability to build resilience and self-sufficiency. The children adapted to their new situation with surprising adaptability. Noah, now 11, thrived in the coding group Emma introduced him to. Lily acquired a fascination for science that neither Sophie nor Mark had recognized. Ethan's dinosaur passion grew into a more general interest in natural history. Emma established college funds for each of them, with the condition that the funds be spent solely for educational purposes, a safeguard against history repeating itself. Mark and Emma formed an unexpected friendship based on mutual respect. He had confronted the financial calamity head-on, gradually repairing his credit and profession, while becoming a more present father than he had ever been during his marriage. The bankruptcy was humiliating, he admitted. This truer version of Mark. Not all relationships could be saved, however. Carol continued to avoid actual accountability, alternating between superficial apologies and sly explanations. During one especially challenging meal, she mentioned that Emma's success was owed in part to her tough love style. "If we hadn't pushed you out of the nest, would you have developed the same drive?" she wondered, as if Emma's homelessness had been a deliberate teaching moment rather than abandonment. Emma cautiously set down her fork. "That's like saying, abuse makes people stronger. Some survive despite it, not because of it. I succeeded in spite of how you treated me, not because of it." Carol swiftly changed the subject, since she was always uncomfortable with direct confrontation. These incidents confirmed Dr. Price's assessment that while Carol might change her conduct to preserve contact, true remorse or insight may never arrive. Some people aren't capable of the depth of self-reflection necessary for genuine change, Dr. Price told Emma. You can adjust your expectations accordingly and decide what kind of limited relationship, if any, serves your well-being. By the time her house's one-year anniversary neared, Emma had set clear guidelines for family interaction. Monthly lunches with Sophie and the kids, occasional coffees with Carol, regular dinners with Tom, and more frequent time with the children during Mark's custody weeks. To commemorate the event, Emma arranged a small gathering in stark contrast to the previous year's grand housewarming. Mia accompanied her new fiancé. Dr. Reed and her husband attended. Tom arrived with Anne, their relationship now serious. Mark brought the kids for a few hours. Even Sophie made a brief and charming visit. Carol was noticeably absent. Her choice after Emma declined to invite certain toxic family friends, Carol insisted on including. It was a small but crucial win in keeping Emma's boundaries. As the evening progressed and people had dessert on the patio, Noah approached Emma with his laptop. "Aunt Emma, can you look at my code? I'm trying to build a game, but the graphics won't render properly." They sat on the porch swing, solving his JavaScript issues as fireflies blinked in the coming dusk. The simple moment, an aunt assisting her nephew, family members supporting one another in healthy ways, brought tears to Emma's eyes, which she quickly wiped away. "Are you okay?" Noah inquired, noting her emotion. "More than okay," Emma told him, "just happier here." Later that night, when everyone had left, Emma wandered through her home, which was genuinely hers in every way. The house had become a haven, not only from the outer world, but also from the harmful family habits that had nearly ruined her. Within these confines, she had created new rituals, connections, and a new understanding of family that was based on mutual respect rather than duty or manipulation. Emma's journey from sleeping in her car at 18 to owning this lovely home at 32 was not solely about financial gain. It was about reclaiming her worth, setting healthy boundaries, and creating a life that reflected her ideals rather than others' expectations. Her ties with her family would most certainly remain complex. Carol may never fully admit the devastation she had caused. Sophie's growth potential may be limited. Tom's attempts to make amends could not undo years of absence. However, Emma no longer required their validation or approval to feel whole. The terrified 18-year-old who drove away from her childhood home with nowhere to go had discovered not just safety, but also strength. She had realized that family is sometimes chosen rather than born, and that standing in her truth, no matter how difficult, results in genuine connection rather than hollow performances of obligation. As Emma sat on her veranda with a cup of tea, watching the stars appear in the summer sky, she felt tremendous serenity. The voyage had not been easy, but it had taken her exactly where she needed to be. Home, in all senses of the word.